Hello and welcome back to Playtime with Rufus, a spiritual and metaphysical podcast unlike any other. My name is Mario Radinger, and in today's episode, we venture deeper into the mechanics of human communication, spiritual polarization, and ascension. Rufus, who is speaking through my dear friend and colleague Emily Lancry, begins by explaining the foundational role of language, not just as a tool for sharing ideas, but as a reflection of our inner clarity and the limitations of our human design. From there, we explore the distinctions between positive, negative, and neutral polarizations, how each group evolves, what motivates their choices, and the paths they follow in their journey through the densities. We also talk about the frequencies of self-acceptance and gratitude, and how those two qualities alone can act as powerful catalysts for raising one's vibration. As the conversation unfolds, Rufus addresses the roles of higher density beings, those who are both incarnated and non-incarnated, and how they engage with the earthly playtime, including what their intentions might be for doing so. And then we get to a big one, the implications of planetary ascension. Rufus shares what happens to those who are not ready to ascend with Earth, and what that means not just for them, but for the broader flow of universal evolution. We look at the tension between expansion and stagnation, and how lower frequency collectives may benefit from keeping things exactly as they are. Suppression of knowledge, control through confusion, and resistance to awakening, these are all part of the equation. And yet, the message from Rufus is clear. Evolution is the natural, unstoppable rhythm of the universe. So if you've ever wondered how polarization works, why language sometimes fails us, or what ascension actually means in a metaphysical sense, this episode offers clarity, depth, and new perspectives. As always, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And remember, this is Playtime with Rufus, where higher wisdom meets human curiosity. And I now ask Rufus to join us here and work with us today. Do we have Rufus here with us?
We are coming. Give us a little moment to settle. We'll be right here with you.
All right. Take your time.
Thank you. And here we are.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please let us know if there's anything we can do to help you integrate more into her body, or anything we can do to help Emily relax even more.
It's okay now. There was a little bit of resistance today for us to come in, but we are in. It should be good from there.
Very good. Resistance in what way?
Well, energetically speaking, we had a little bit of a harder time to accommodate and settle in her body. Nothing major, though, just slightly delayed.
Would you like to say more about the reason for this resistance?
It's probably an energetical match. Sometimes it happens. It really depends on how disposed and available the subject that we need to enter is at the moment of the entry. Sometimes the energy is a bit, let's say, messy inside the physical body for us to come and match with it, if we may say. Today was just a little bit, not harder, but uneasy to come in, if we can say that.
Okay. Is there anything we can do or that Emily can do next time to avoid that, to make it easier?
We're not sure because it is not a problem. It is not a big issue as we are still able to come and match her. It's probably related to where she is at the time, energetically speaking, of course.
Right. Is there anything you would like to say to her about her current situation?
Well, she could stop whining for a starter, as pretty much everything is coming to her. The issue with Emily is always the same issue, and we've been trying to emphasize this issue for her, which is summarized in one word, which is actually the same in both language that she is using. Patience. This is exactly what she needs to be practicing until she can reach that patience, not for others, because this is pretty much done, but patience for herself, patience for her goals and objectives and whatever she's trying to manifest until she can actually embody those words in both language. Patience, then she will be struggling, feeling unsatisfied, or feeling like she is steering in the wrong direction. Everything that is happening is meant to be happening. There is no mistake. She just needs to keep having faith and patience.
Very good. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
We have a few questions we would like to ask before we dive into um, the agenda of today's session.
Exciting. Fire away.
The first would be one of Emily's questions. You just mentioned the word patience, for example, as something that holds a lot of meaning for her and her path. And she was actually wondering about the purpose and value of words and language in general.
Of course she was.
Yes. She was wondering whether the concept of having language as human beings and also developing it from a state of not having language at some point in our past, was that planned? Was it part of the design? And if so, why?
Yes. It's why let's say a difficulty level adds up. So pretty much like if you're playing a game, you're going into different level of this game. You have some different challenges that rise. You have some different difficulties. The more you go, the more interesting it gets, but the more difficulties you encounter, words are pretty much part of it. It was intended to use words because it makes things on a different level of difficulty. It would have been way easier to just communicate telepathically like we do, like plants do, like animals can do also. But for humans, telepathy can be done, of course, but it is not what is intended at this level right now. Languages, words are of importance. Although we do have designed different languages for humans, you have body language, emotional language. Again, multiple layers of the same, as you say, word. So here again, you can see the difficulty as one word, such as language, do have different meaning in terms of different concept. Are we talking about word language? Are we talking about gestural language? Are we talking about behavioral language? Are we talking about emotional language? So if you're focusing on words, this is just one difficulty added to the playtime as it makes things more interesting. It's double-faced. You have language to communicate and make it easy in appearance between humans, but it is also adding distance between them on different level. One of the level will be that some humans don't speak the same language, and the other level will be that even if they do speak the same language, they don't speak the same language as what is being put behind words is actually different for each player as it is shaped by the experience of this player, the knowledge, the understanding, the ability to integrate, digest information taken along the play. Everything is put into the words the player use, and the words being given to a different player will be received and interpreted with the experience of this player, and therefore it's not necessarily a match. So the word that you're talking about could be heard many different ways, could be understood many different ways, could be pronounced and said many different ways, which makes the game even more interesting for us to watch and for humans to experience, as they could eventually reach to the conclusion that, again, it is polarized. You use words to communicate with each other, but are you really communicating accurately with each other? Here again, easier or harder, polarized. So it makes sense with this playtime, doesn't it?
Hmm, it does. Would it be correct to assume that on top or maybe even below the level of acoustic communication, there's always a level of telepathic communication going on?
Yes, there is. If the people involved are able to trust their instinct, to trust what they feel, to trust what they're sensing from the other.
Mhm.
Sometimes humans don't allow themselves to trust themselves on what they are receiving and what they are understanding from the exchange.
Mhm.
You could have a complete conversation telepathically between two humans if they were able to trust what they were getting from the eyes, the body language, the energetic body, whatever they were sensing from that person. Let's say if you and Emily were in the same room facing each other and you were actually in your mind telling her something, she could be able to, in her mind, hear or have an idea of what you were saying if she would follow her instinct, and vice versa, of course, because you are humans, but you are still souls, let's say. We are not sure that that's the word we want to use, but let's use souls for now. So, therefore, you have the inner ability to understand each other without the use of language, but it means being in touch with your inner self, with who you truly are outside of being that human player. Do you understand what we're trying to say?
Yes.
So, everybody is actually able to have telepathic conversation. But because of the fact that you come to this playtime not remembering, this is actually tied to the conversation we had last time.
Mhm.
Remember the veil or the forgetting part of this playtime versus the inner knowing that you are something bigger than just the player playing this playtime. So if you can remember who you truly are and that you are, in fact, playing in a vessel in a playtime, that you're not entirely just this human player, then you are able to telepathically communicate. But if you're not in touch with this part of you, if you are actually embracing fully your human side, then you need words or gesture to be able to communicate with each other.
So it would be correct to say that by remembering who one truly is and opening up to that connection to the non-physical aspect, telepathy becomes easier.
Yes, this is accurate. At least we believe it is.
Mhm.
That's because it has logic into it. Universal aspects or laws, or however you want to name it, has a very logical situation going on. So, yes, if you are in fact something more than just your human aspect, and you do remember this, then you automatically have bigger access to that essence of you. And it comes with what you could call power in terms of ability, in
Mhm.
terms of specificity, uniqueness that you could bring to this playtime. And therefore, telepathy can become one of them. So, one human could actually train to become able to telepathically communicate if that human were able to recognize the non human aspect of itself. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Let's proceed to the next question.
Yes,
I
please.
believe I believe we touched on this one in the last session, but maybe explain a bit further for Emily, especially. We talked
And
about the process of ascending into the next higher density,
yes,
and we talked about polarization. We talked about positive polarization and negative polarization, and also
neutral.
neutral,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Yes,
Don't forget the third part.
exactly. And Emily was wondering whether you could speak more about the way that negative polarization or negatively polarized beings ascend, whether that's the case. How do they get into the next density? And what does negative polarization look like on the higher densities?
Yes, we could touch base on this. So basically, every human being that is ascending can be having their frequency reason, whether they are playing from one or the other or the third party.
Mhm,
It doesn't matter. Since they both coexist, if one is able to raise the frequency, then automatically the others are able to do the same.
mhm,
Let's say if one service of self is raising frequency, that means the ability to take more information, integrate, digest them, and put them into motion in your playtime. They also become more intuitive. They also can develop abilities. They also can develop what you may call superpower, which are really not by humans like this label superpowers or psychic abilities. They become more aware of who they truly are, which is way more than human. In the same way, the other players can recognize that they are more than just human. It clearly doesn't matter if you are playing for one or the other groups, but if you are asking about what humans call negative entities, negative players, darker spirits, then they will simply become more tuned and better at playing their parts. They
mhm,
will have more to draw from. They would understand energies better. They would be able to communicate between them and to understand other players better. Their discernment will be more refined. The way they see the world, the way they see their environment will be different. The filter of their lens will change. They will be able to see all the subtleties, all the codes that are written in this playtime. They will be able to find what you call magic in it, and they will be able to use it to their purpose, use it to reach their goal, use it to feed themselves exactly the same way that the other players are using it. The only difference will be their objective, their goals. Remember, we mentioned that one is of service of oneness, and therefore you may translate it in your words in service of others. One is in service of self, and one is in service of neutrality. Everything is in service of the universe. It's just a matter of how they decide to serve. What you call negative entities would be exactly the same as the other. Their ascension will be exactly the same. But because they have a different objective, a different goal, a different vision, they will use everything they can bring with them during this ascension. They will bring every tool set that they are building, every information they are now seeing clearly, every knowledge and understanding. They would bring it with them in order to serve their purpose, in order to go closer to their objective, in order to come closer to what they truly believe in, which is exactly the same way of functioning than the other. It's just really a different outcome. But the climbing the ladder, if we can use that expression, would be really truly similar. Do you understand what we are discussing?
I believe so.
Okay, very well. So there is no real difference in the way of happening, but there is a huge difference in the way of using this ascension. What is the player deciding to do with it? What is the goal of the player? What is animating the player? What is fueling the player? This is where the big difference lay. It is really a matter of what are they ascending towards? What for? What world are they trying to create for themselves? What world are they trying to create for others? Because even people playing for self are creating for others. They are just putting others below, but they are still co-creating with them. So the big difference will be in the intention that the player is rising with or towards, not in the way. Every player is raising the same way. Frequency needs to go up. This is the only way to ascend. Everything is made of vibrations. Vibrations are frequencies. In order to change that vibration, the frequency needs to change as well. There are only two ways possible. Frequency go up or frequency go down. Regarding this playtime, in the moment of this playtime we are looking at, frequencies only go up. In this way, every player are raising their frequency, whether they want it or not, whether they like it or not. If they want to continue playing, their frequency needs to go up. If they are unable to raise their frequency, the game will simply stop. There is no other way possible for now. Now, each player choosing to raise their own frequency can also have a different intention and a different agenda. Like we mentioned before, what you call faction, if we may use this word. Those three factions have players, and each frequency being raised will serve one or the other or the third. It depends on the player choice. Also, we would like to mention that one player can decide to serve one group, if we may use that word, but then change his mind and go for the other group. One player is not forced to follow one path and go through with it. One player has freedom of choice, and one player will be influenced by so many that in any moment of its chosen playtime, this player can decide to switch game and move on, choosing a different outcome, therefore, a different group, quotation marks, to follow and serve. Do you understand what we are saying?
I think I do. I also have questions.
Yes.
You mentioned that an important aspect of raising vibration is also the doing, what the being does on the level of action.
Yes, you are living in a density-based world. Your playtime is actually ruled by what we call tangible, what we call concrete matter, what we call materialistic, what we call dense. You have gravity, service, this playtime. Therefore, you need to raise your frequency in terms of doing tangible, concrete, materialistic, dense actions in order to be able to be perceived in this world that you're playing in. We are trying to explain to the best we can. We are surely hoping that this is clear for you. This being played in something dense cannot be played in something, let's say, more etherical, something that is only based on higher sphere, on non-physical matter. It is not possible. A player will be stuck if the intention is to be played this way. The player and each and every player of this playtime have to understand that whatever they can think of, whatever they can visualize, whatever they can intend to attain, they need to put in practice. They need to take action. And we are talking about concrete actions in order to put their agenda into motion. What can be true for our part is not for your playtime. If we can manifest just by intention, humans are kind of stuck manifesting through actions because this is the law that is governing their playtime.
What does action for the three factions look like? Typical action that would actually help them raise frequency.
Well, this is very complicated to answer. We'll probably not cover it in, let's say, 100% accuracy, because you have to remember that each player having freedom of choice means each way of playing and doing and raising frequency will be different. Although they will have common parts, they will only be complete by having the individual part as well that is tailor-made to each player. So we will not be able to talk about this, but for the common part, we can surely try to explain.
Wonderful.
If you have a player that is having intention on helping the larger community, helping life in its globality, helping others in your playtime, we can use that expression, whether it's others as other human or others are surrounding plants, environment, or others are animal. It doesn't matter. Those who are trying to play for the group, those who are trying to really embrace that, need to raise their frequency by taking actions that are selfless. Every day, they need to first of all embrace themselves fully with their beauty and their ugliness, the imperfect acceptance of who they are at the moment. Once they are able to do this, they will automatically inspire others to do the same. And once they are able to fully embrace themselves the moment they are doing it, they will be able to start moving towards putting their own self in service of the global. You could start accepting yourself, taking simple action. Recognize where you at. Look at what you've been living. Look at your situation. Take notes on what you like, what you dislike, what you are proud of, what you would like to change, what you are satisfied that you're accomplished, and what you would like to evolve. Then start being grateful and thanking yourself and every other player that has been helping you to attain that what you put in the good parts of the list, let's say. Being very grateful for that, being proud of yourself for that, and take action on an everyday basis to tackle what you put on the other side of the list. Let's say if one would like to change its relationships because on the list that they want to evolve, they put, I feel alone. This is an isolated example. Their actions will be to go outside of their comfort zone, start conversation with people they may never talk with before, start getting out and socialize, put themselves out there to create link and connection to other beings. Go in nature, hug trees, smell flowers, sing with birds, lay on grass, thank the earth. All this type of concrete action will actually make them feel less alone. It will therefore start changing what they put in the to change list. And once they feel less alone, what they put on this side of the list will now go to the other side. And instead of trying to solve it or fix it, they can now be thankful and grateful for having achieved the fact that they don't feel alone anymore and be proud of themselves to have accomplished that. And they can repeat this for everything and every aspect of their life. Often, humans always see what they lack. When they say, I want, they mean I lack. When they say I hope, I wish, they mean they are unsatisfied with their actual situation regarding this matter. But they also forget to be thankful and grateful for everything they have accomplished, for everything they transform, for everything they metamorphose on. And they forget to be proud of themselves. They forget to be thankful to every other players that led them to this accomplishment as well, because no one is playing alone. So if they are focusing only on what actions can I take to change and evolve, thinking they will raise their frequency this way, they are forgetting half of the picture. They need also to constantly be grateful, thankful, proud, and happy, pleased, satisfied with what they tackle, and never forget to extend that gratitude to all the beings involved in their success. If one can do that on a regular basis, then the frequency will rise without any issue. It will rise very easily. Another concrete action they can do is be mindful of their nourishment. We believe we talked about it before. Living in this playtime, in this density, your physical body and other bodies need to be fed on a regular basis. Food that you will intake is pretty important in the way you want to raise your frequency or maintain it as is. You need to be mindful and take action into putting stuff in your body that will make you feel good, make you feel at peace, make you feel satisfied, joyful. If we are still talking about the ones playing for this group, that is actually true for the other group as well. But let's keep on focusing on this group. You need to be mindful of that. Sometimes people are feeding, thinking this is good for me because everybody else is saying it's good. Every other player is saying this will raise your frequency. This might not be completely true, as we mentioned before. Every player is unique. So the most important for the player to be doing is really pay attention to how they truly feel in taking this nourishment, not how they believe they should feel, not how they've been told they will feel, but how they truly feel about it. In that sense, if we are talking about nourishment as food, players may be good on different diets. Some diet may be working amazingly to raise frequency for some players, but not working at all for other players. The most important part is always be sure that deep down inside, the feeling is good, satisfied, joyful. This is when a player knows that the nourishment is beneficial and helping the frequency to rise. This can be done on a daily basis as well. But nourishment can be extended to activities, can be extended to conversation. If one player is staying completely isolated inside a exploring without communicating at all, it might be hard to raise the frequency. This is a playtime that has been designed to be played together, to be played with each other or even against each other, but to be played together. So, in order to raise frequency, it is very important to embrace that aspect of it. It doesn't have to be together with humans all the time, but together with the living species and aspect of this playtime. Do you understand this?
Yes, I think so.
Perfect. So that could be a way to raise frequency as well. Fully embrace the collectiveness of the game. What else can be done? The list is quite infinite.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Where does the aspect of service to oneness or others, as we would say, come in to that player of the positive team?
Instantly, the one that is coming with the intention to begin with the intention to play for this group set, let's say, is instant. As soon as the soul incarnate on earth, they will be driven by this mindset, by this fire, by this intention to be of service to oneness. The children are a perfect example of that. They will automatically go towards others, go towards nature, go towards animals, even towards objects, and make a whole world out of it. Communicate with it. Make a whole animation, a whole togetherness of things. For children, paper may be like a monster, an angel, a boat, a living species that they will carry and have conversation, playfulness with. They are already in that connection. They are already conscious that it's a togetherness playtime. So it's instant. Now, for some players that maybe were playing for a different group, may they decide or may they feel the need to switch intention, to switch goal. The experience might actually put the light on the importance of togetherness as they go. It would not be necessarily innate in them, but it will be something they acquire along the way to the point that it becomes so evident that their initial intention may switch. Does that answer your question?
Yes, partly. What's left uncovered is everything you've mentioned so far, loving of the self, the being proud of what has been accomplished, the good nourishment of the body. It seems to be all done in the self or by a person alone, basically, in their apartment. Positively polarizing person. Do they have to do something on the level of action that affects others in order to raise their vibration?
Yes, we believe we haven't completed our answer.
Okay, sorry.
We might have been distracted and steer into the next one.
Right.
But we are mentioning this as a starter. Everything starts with self in order to be able to serve, whether it's serving self, serving other, or serving neutrality.
Mhm.
Oneself is okay in acceptance with all this and took action to be at ease. then actions for others can be taken, because it will be inspiring others, because it will be able to explain or listen or hold space for others to exist, support them, nourish them, maybe guide them, maybe help them. But everything needs to be first coming from self. In terms of actions that can be taken in service of others, oneself is in acceptance of itself. The list is infinite. You can simply be there for your friends and family. Listen, hold space, help them financially in more concrete action, help them philosophically, help them mentally. You could take care of them if they need help with their health. Basically, service to others is limitless. You can help nature, the environment. You can take action in pretty much everything. It is very hard to make a list. This is where we stopped at first. Because if self is not in acceptance of self, every action self will take for others might not have the intended impact. It might be a little bit deemed, because it will become from a not broken, but not stabilized heart. It will become from a wounded self. It would become from a not fully accepted self. Therefore, it will be harder to help raise frequencies around, because what would transpire from this incomplete self will be an incomplete work. And therefore, what others will draw or will absorb or will nourish or will take from that self will be incomplete as well. The authenticity is needed. If self is going to help others, if self is going to talk and communicate to others, it needs to come from an authentic place, meaning self-words and self-behavior needs to be in perfect harmony with what self is giving. You have an expression about ducks. If it talk like a duck, walk like a duck, then it must be a duck. So this is the same. You have to be sure that self is talking self and not talking what self hope to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so.
Self may not be fully of service if self is not fully in acceptance of self. It doesn't have to be complete in a sense of what self desire to become is complete, but it has to be complete in a sense of what self is about right now. Authenticity, honesty. Let's say if self is not satisfied with what self is doing, let's say work-wise, then self-accept that the successful professional is not there yet. And when self is going to be of service to other, it will stay authentic to that part. And it will not portray or mention to other how you need to be successful with your professional, how you can be, and how self is going to help on that level, because self hasn't mastered it for itself yet. So the service that is going to be intended will not necessarily be efficient for others. But if self addressed the matter by saying, I am on this path myself, I am not complete yet. I am still working my way, and I'm okay with it. And so you can be okay with it as well. This might be more efficient in service to others. Does that make sense?
Yes, excellent.
So you see, actions can be taken in many, many ways. It will have as only limit the imagination of the player and the willingness of the player. So we will not make the list of it, but it is truly vital and very essential that a player understand it starts with them. It starts with where they are at the moment of their taking action to serve others. If this is not clear, if this is not mastered, the service to other will be altered.
This is very helpful information. Thank you for going into more detail here. Let us now proceed to the other team,
Yes.
the negative. What would helpful action for their ascension look like?
So for the negative, we believe that is actually similar, but on a more manipulative and power-driven spirits. Let's say if a player playing for self, service of self, they will be driven by always being satisfied with them, always be on top, always chasing something that is gonna keep them leading the path, leading others, and sometimes crushing others. They would not try to be of service. So they will not try to be complete in order to help because they don't have that intention of helping others. They will only be focused on helping themselves. So already half of the work is done because it is non-existent. They will be now focusing on what can be done to make sure that I am the one on top without taking any other player, whether humans or not, in consideration. What can be done so my experience is completely fulfilled and satisfied, not caring about connections, ramification, and consequences it may have on others. Therefore, their focus will be similar. They can also draw a list, look at what they are satisfied with, proud of, happy, and what they would like to change, evolve to be more successful. But because their intention will not taking others into consideration, only to be pawned and to be used, therefore, it's a little less complicated because now you don't have to, how we can say that, protect other feelings. You don't have to play with other feelings. You don't have to considerate other feelings or anything else other than yourself, which makes it easier and makes things move faster most of the time. Because you are the only self that is taking into consideration. So you might be able to move your list from the satisfied, the unsatisfied to the satisfied column faster because you're only considering yourself. But the actions will be based on the same looking at what you are satisfied and unsatisfied, and taking action on an everyday basis to change it. Still being grateful, but in this sense, it will be more proud driven, not necessarily grateful as a thank you for where I am. Thank you for all the connection that led me here, but more like, thank you, I'm so good. I did good. I can be proud of myself. I was the best at it. I did not need anybody else to accomplish this. I did this. I succeeded. I mastered this aspect of my life. Now, I desire to master this one. What action can be taken to master it? And therefore, you will start and move, put things into motion. And you would actually use other players and your environment, manipulating them so they can serve you. This is where the difference will be put in terms of actions taken. The other group will be, I would like to be in acceptance where I am so I can be helpful and of service to others. This group will be, I am in acceptance of where I am, and I'm looking at where I would like to go so I can then use other to service me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Therefore, the actions that would be triggered from this statement will be very different. Let's say if I'm a player, service of self, that is in the need of professional better situation. We're going to continue with this professional because we used it before. I would look at my colleague if I work in a team set, and I will make sure that I could use every skill set of my colleagues to make me look good. I would delegate some stuff so it will be easier work for me. But then I would get the reward for it. Let's say if I had to write something, I would ask around, what would you write about that subject? How would you phrase it? How would you say that? Do you have any idea? And I would gather information. Then I will put them into a writing part, and I would decide that I wrote it. And therefore, when I turn my writing, whatever it is, my boss will be very pleased with my work. Even if it was a collective work, I would present it as my work. And the reward will be mine, and the promotion will be mine and mine only. And I would not sweat a minute the fact that I never mentioned or included all the different colleagues that were involved in that work. This will be an action taken from this player. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes. Doing this, the player will be at a better place professionally. This player can then move that to the other side and feel satisfied about it, and its frequency will then be higher because the same feeling will be attained by the player. It will be feeling good about it, feeling proud of it, feeling satisfied with it, feeling completed, feeling like he evolved, and therefore the frequency will rise. The actions taken and the way it was played will be completely different. But the outcome of it, in terms of how to raise the frequency, will be the same because the player will feel the same energy, the same rush, the same satisfaction, the same joy, the same love, quote marks, just different meaning of love. But the feel will be of love and the frequency will rise. Does that make sense to you?
A lot, yes.
Perfect. The neutral now, which we mentioned, is not that many, will be actually able to observe both players in their own game and be able to discern one way or the other to attain the same feeling. Those players will be able to take every actions into consideration, whether it is self-driven, whether it is others-driven, and decide that the outcome is similar and embrace it. This is why it's only a few amount of players playing this neutrality, because it's not really about them taking the action. It's more about them knowing, recognizing there are several ways to attain the same feeling. And the fact of knowing and recognizing the game of each player and how it is played will fulfill this neutral player, will make them feel good and completed because they see the picture being done and they understand how both parties can obtain the same feeling and therefore raise frequency equally by playing different game, because they are able to fully understand it without judging it, but just accepting that both way exist and both way are receivable. This player of neutrality will then be complete and raise frequency this way. Does that make sense?
Partly, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Does it mean that those in the neutral section are mostly observers of what the other's doing, or does it mean that they also act in one of the two ways, or even different in different situations?
It will mean all of the above.
Ah,
Player will be able to observe, being satisfied, and move on frequency wise. Today, because the opportunity of raising will be easier or more accurate to use as a self-driven, this player will be able to use this bias. The next instant, because the situation will be more easy or beneficial to play for others, this player will use this bias. It's going to be a player that can play both ways, depending on the situation and depending on what they decide to be more efficient, but without having any judgment on whether it's good or bad to use this way. See, they will look at it as an opportunity to raise frequency, as an opportunity to achieve their goal, to achieve completeness, to move on from one side to other on their little board. And therefore, they would be okay using either, or they will be okay observing others using. So it's a very complicated way of playing, but it is actually very easy to raise the frequency faster. Does that make sense? It's a bit hard to explain for us.
think you're doing well.
Let us try again. we're going to position ourselves as a player of neutrality. We are a player of neutrality. Therefore, we have no judgment on what actions is taken. If we are looking at the player using the colleagues to collect rewards and be okay, we can recognize this as an efficient way to obtain what the player wants. If we are looking, on the other hand, at the player trying to be of service and helping his fellow raise their own frequency, therefore their frequency as well can raise, we will be okay with this as well, and we will recognize it as a good way to do it. And for us, it would be applied depending on the situation. If we are in a work situation that this day we would feel good about ourselves to be helping others because we feel like we are at an acceptance point with ourselves and we can be of service today and it will make us feel good, this is what we will be doing. If we are in a situation where we do need validation from our boss to feel better today, then we can totally use our colleague to get the reward. And we are in acceptance with both ways as we are not judging either. So both are actually valuable to us because it allows us to obtain what we wanted, which is feeling good, feeling accomplished, and moving this little part of our board to the next one. Is it easier to understand?
Yes. May I ask a question?
Yes.
I assume that the majority of people on this planet at this time are not really aware of these polarizations
Not really.
existing. So I could imagine that a lot of people out there are bumping every day between doing things of service to others and doing things in service of self. What is the difference between those bumping unconsciously between these actions and those in the neutral team who do the same?
The intention. Let's
Okay.
say the player of service of self would have the intention of helping other, therefore automatically sort of a judgment, sort of a label of negative will be applied to the other player. Let's say people thinking they are on the bright side of things, that they are playing for the light beings team, playing for the oneness, playing for others, would look at the other player and judge them by labeling them as negative entities, negative being, dark being, playing only for self, destroying, destructive being. Do you see? The neutral player will not have that judgment. The neutral player will be in acceptance of the words used in terms of neutral will be okay calling beings light beings or dark beings. The neutral players will not have the judgment that one is wrong and one is right. Neutral player will be embracing both as a possibility of existence without having to be right or wrong, with just being. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. So therefore, when service to self and service to other are bumping into sometimes each other during their day and within themselves, difference with a neutral player will be they will know that what they are doing according to their own intention, goals, and drive will be wrong. Quote marks, of course.
Mhm.
If I'm in service of self, at one point, being servicing others will feel wrong and I will feel tired and bored and I don't want to have to do this because I want to serve me. The other side, when service of other will have to be selfish, manipulative, and use others, it will feel wrong as well because they are driven to serve others. Neutral player would not feel wrong at all. They will feel like this is what needs to be done, and so it is. Do you see the subtlety in it?
Yes, very well explained.
Oh,
Thank you.
so welcome.
In a scenario where a positively polarizing being does an action of manipulation or service to self, does such an action decrease their vibration or does it decrease their polarization?
What would decrease it is the way they face it, the way they're accepting their action.
Hmm.
Let's say one player, service of others, is doing an action that tends to be manipulative and self driven.
Mhm.
They are in acceptance of, oh, well, today I did not handle myself right according to my vision of rightness. And I did something that in my book is wrong. But I am okay with it because at the moment, this is all I could have done.
Mhm.
I did my best. I'm not completely proud of it, but I'm in acceptance that this is what I did. The impact will be not that dramatic on the frequency. And it could actually help raise the frequency because the person doing this will have grown, because the discernment will have been able to say, I did not play right in my book, but I recognize it. I accept it. I make peace with it. And next time, I'll do my best to do better. This is actually a good way to raise frequency. It's maturity. It's taking a higher perspective on our own actions and our own way of handling things. So this could definitely be a good aspect. But if the player instead is, I did something very bad, is feeling guilty, is feeling awful, it's lingering, it's twisting his stomach, he's not able to sleep at night. He's not able to fix it. He's not able to accept that he behaved this way. Then the impact on its frequency will be completely different. Because the perspective the player chooses to put on the same action will be completely different. And this is why we rewind to what we were saying before. It is very important for a player to be in self-acceptance, whether self is completed or not, whether self is what self is longing to be or become or not. This has a heavy impact on the frequency and on the ascension. An ascending self doesn't mean a perfect self. It doesn't mean a self that is able to handle everything correctly. It means a self that is fully aware of its behavior, that is fully aware of where self is in its own journey, and that is fully ready to accept his shadow part, his light part, his neutrality, and be okay with it, and always intend to improve it. This is what really allows self to ascend. Not perfection, not handling everything right, not actions that are only good quote marks or positive quote marks or in alignment with the intention quote marks. So to answer your question, it would really depend on the perspective self put on its action.
Thank you. I assume the same applies to a service to self being that catches itself doing something of service to others.
Yes, in the same way, let's say I'm of service for myself and I'm hungry, but for some reason I see a child and I give him my food, then all of a sudden I feel really, really hungry. And I'm like, oh, I should not have been giving my food to this child. I'm stupid. Now I'm hungry. Now my stomach hurts. And we can keep on going this way. Or if I look at the situation saying, well, I am hungry. Next time, maybe I'll just give half of it. So at least I'm not that hungry. But at the same time, it was a child, so I'm okay with it. Then it's different impact. You see?
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. May we say something?
Yes.
Emily needs to purge.
Okay.
Is it all right if we allow her to go?
Yes, of course. Do you want me to guide her through a short process of awakening, or will she be able to do it just like that?
She would be able to go, and we will just remain with her if it's okay with you.
Okay, wonderful.
All
Yes.
right. We'll go now.
Yes. Yes.
No,
Let me know when you're ready to proceed.
we are.
Very good. Thank you. A question in regard to what we talked about. According to my understanding, the three strategies, let's call them strategies, are ways to ascend.
Yes.
So what about those people on the planet who are not aware of this and are not, let's say, efficiently doing what needs to be done to ascend through one of these three strategies? What happens to them?
Well, that means they will not be able to follow. Unfortunately, they will depart. If, in order to be able to ascend and maintain self on this playtime, you have to keep on rising frequency as Earth is rising her own. Those unable to do so will unfortunately not be able to follow, not be able to maintain themselves on this playtime, and will have to depart.
So I would assume that most souls, if not all of those who incarnate here at this time, their goal would be to ascend and continue with this playtime, correct?
Yeah, this is the goal, yes. This playtime is designed to evolve. In other words, to ascend. For a soul to evolve as well. For a soul to gain on knowledge, experience, to ascend, to evolve. Every player goal is the same to start with, but some others are unable for some reason to fulfill this goal. They are reaching stagnation. And when you're reaching stagnation, there is no need of keeping the game alive. There is no need to keep on playing this playtime. Because this playtime has been designed to gain experience, to gain knowledge, and in other words, to evolve. If this is not fulfilled, your playtime is just, how you call that? Game over.
Mhm.
It's the same for the players who reach their goal. If you came to, let's say, attain certain amount of knowledge, gain certain specific experience, or evolve to a certain point, and you reach that point, then you can move on to the next playtime. You don't need to continue on this one because you already fulfilled your purpose.
Right.
You had a
So
question.
Yes, thank you. Would those who have not chosen one of the three strategies yet benefit from being made aware of this?
Well, that's the thing. Their soul has already chosen one strategy. They are not able to remember that they have chosen a strategy. This is the difference. They are not able to remember it. Therefore, even if a strategy was chosen, it is not consciously applied. It might be unconsciously applied, but it is not consciously applied. Therefore, if the question is asked of them consciously, are you aware of being part of one of those three? Their answer will be no, because consciously they are not. But it doesn't mean that they haven't chosen one to start with.
Right.
You understand?
Yes, thank you. This actually leads to my next question.
So, is
Yeah.
it that?
No, please continue.
We were just saying, to answer fully your question, is it of value to make them aware of these? Yes, it is. It is always of value to offer a player a greater knowledge, to offer them the possibility of evolving. It is always of value. Now, it doesn't mean because we offer them that perspective that they will embrace it and accept it. Maybe they will decide that this is, how you call that, bullshit, and that this is not accurate. And therefore, they would not consciously be aware of being part of the three. But if the question was, would it be of value to propose the idea to any players? Yes, it would. It will always be of value to propose information. But when you propose something, it will be also of value to be fully ready to accept how it is received.
Right. Thank you so much. Is the
You're welcome.
strategy, or maybe let's use the term path instead, is the path, or let me phrase it differently. When is the path chosen? Before a soul starts incarnating on Earth, while it is incarnating? And at what point does it have to be decided to be an effective path?
At creation, it's already chosen. It's what you say encoded somehow. But experiences can actually alter those codes. And especially experience in this playtime, because of freedom of choice, one soul can decide to actually change path. It is possible. It is not because it's encoded in the creation that it is actually anchored in as is. It is encoded to start with, but it also has the possibility of evolving with the soul and therefore being recoded or decoded, however you choose to mention it.
Would it be possible for a positively polarizing player to have a past life, in quotation marks, in which the player was acting in line with another path? In other words, is it possible to switch?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It is possible. And actually, to our observation, it does happen more often that we can think of, because of those incarnation in your playtime with this veil of forgetfulness is quite amazing in terms of the impact it has on the soul and its code. Some of the souls have to rest for a long time after playing this playtime in order not to be completely shuffled in.
Please explain further.
Yes, this could be very disturbing for a soul coming into this playtime with a certain set of codes, and then because of its incarnation and the life it will play and the actions that it actually will take in the playtime, once the soul is done and reflect on what the soul has chosen to experience, it could be so shuffling and so amazingly different than what the soul was expecting to act and play as, that the soul would need to restore, rest, and let's say have some moment of self gathering to get back to her own self and to be able to digest everything that this soul just gave and received in that experience.
May I ask a question?
You may.
At what point is decided that the soul is ready to ascend?
That's a very good question. Let us ask you to detail it. Are you referring to the ascension in terms of no longer need to play this playtime, or the ascension of just raising frequency during the playtime?
At the end of the playtime.
At the end of the playtime. So when the soul move on from this playtime, get back to her own self and reflect on the experience it has been playing, correct?
Yes, though I don't mean at the end of an individual lifetime. I mean at the end of the entire density cycle.
Right. We see the question. Are you referring to the entire cycle of Earth right now?
Yes. Let's say
Moving
though.
from one density to another.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So when one soul will be knowing that it is ready to shift with Earth, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, sorry to disappoint, but this will be known at the time of shifting, because if some souls may have an idea already that they are actually ascending and can feel that change within them, for some other, this may be so subtle that they will not consciously notice it, but they will be actually ready to follow. So the certainty of being ready to ascend with Earth shifting its frequency will be known when the shift is completed on her part. And whoever is remaining with her will know they passed the ascension. Whoever is departing will know they needed more time to attain that ascension. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I assume that there are a lot of souls incarnated in this playtime at this time that are aiming at ascending with Earth, correct?
Yes. Some souls actually came just for this. The excitement is huge. A lot of souls wanted to come and experience this shift firsthand. So, yes, some are definitely aiming to follow the switch, and some are hoping to experience it fully. But remember, before they choose to incarnate, they don't know what it's like to forget. So some might be surprised at how they handle the shift. Indeed, some souls might have been so excited to live and experience this shift firsthand, but once it comes, they might miss it. And they might find themselves on the other side, just like us, to just witness it. Because forgetting prevented himself to fully experience it firsthand.
Hmm.
This is quite funny, but it is actually what they chose. Some others will be perfectly able, despite the forgetfulness, to follow the shift and live it firsthand and fulfill what they were coming for. You see, this is a very, very exciting moment for a lot of energies out here because it is uncommon for a planet that is inhabited to make a switch of that large scale matter, having its people to jump with her. This is very exciting. This is why so many came. And this is why so many are watching.
I would imagine that this would be the case quite frequently or regularly when it comes to planets who are inhabited. Is it that rare that a planet, together with its inhabitants, has the opportunity to ascend?
It is not happening often.
Okay.
That's the fact. And the rarity of this particular planet is that we're not talking about an ascension that will be understood from the get go from both parts, inhabitant and planet. We are talking from an ascension that is only understood by the planet itself and parts of its inhabitants because of the forgetness aspect of this playtime. This is a phenomenal happening. This is quite amazing that a planet with its inhabitants not even aware of a shift taking place will actually shift together. So it definitely has a rarity into it. Planet shifting with its inhabitant is not that frequent.
Because planets not typically ascend, or because many are not inhabited?
Both
Hmm.
planets do ascend, but it takes a lot of time because they are ancient beings and because they are moving slowly in terms of evolution, because they're a different set of beings. So it will happen for certain planets, it won't for others. Not all the planets are inhabited in terms of species that could be compared to humans, animals, or plants. So for a planet to have all the setup, meaning having inhabitants that could relate to humans or other living species on Earth, and being ready to shift at the same time that they are inhabited, it is not that often that it is happening.
I see.
Because it's a delight to witness. But universe can be moving very slowly in terms of your time frame.
I see. I have this image right now of two very different rhythms falling at the same point of time together, which is quite rare because both rhythms, planet rhythms and species rhythms, are very different in speed, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you as well for exploring these topics. I'm just realizing now that we are still at our private questions, so to speak. We haven't really gone into the agenda yet.
But this is also part of an agenda because even if it's not part of what you call the project, it is also part of our transmission to you. So it has importance.
Okay. Wonderful. I also feel that what we explore today is quite profound and essential to know. So I think it will find its place in the material of the project.
Yes. And we are sure that whatever comes out of our conversation, in due time, you would know how to exploit it and how to keep the transmission going. So, whatever is on records or off records, it's okay with us. It's still valuable to have those conversations.
Okay, wonderful. That's great to know. So maybe since some time has passed here on our plane,
Yeah.
let's address the remaining private questions and let's return to our project in the next session.
Sounds right.
We were just talking about the souls who are incarnating here at this time, at this very special time. It's quite the exciting event and experience. We have received information through several sources over the last years and maybe even decades that there are also souls incarnated here at this time who had already ascended further in other places, and they're now coming here to help those who go through this ascension for the first time, and maybe also those who have never moved through these games and immediately existed on higher planes. Can you speak about this?
Yeah. Yes, we can. Remember what was told to you about players or souls that are actually crafted with the intention of service to others, service to oneness.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Then those souls of service to others also include souls incarnated on your planet.
Mhm.
Therefore, when it's time like this where a big shift, a big ascension is coming, the souls of service to others would love to serve and help souls incarnated on your playtime to make this ascension as smooth as possible. And so they do come to share somehow their support and experiment with the ones playing in order for them to pass that shift with flying colors.
There are several questions emerging here. First, would those souls who are also on the path of service to others, but coming from higher densities, would they be focused on only those or helping only those who are on the same path or all three paths?
All three by service to others is inclusive. It means service to others, not just service to chosen others. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
So if you choose to serve, you will serve. This is also why sometimes there is such an empathy coming for maybe souls who are acting a certain way incarnated that shall not deserve empathy if we were true to our right and wrong belief.
Mhm.
But because of when you're in service to others, you always have this empathy, whether the player is from your side or another. There is no difference. You will still want to help. You will still believe that there is hope to turn this player into the other side and to extract the best out of this player. And so you will always serve others in its entire meaning. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there also higher density beings on the negative path interested in what is happening here and influencing?
Yes, of course. What is interesting to all. There is no, how you say, discrimination. Everyone wants to be part of it somehow, whether it's watching, enacting, supporting. It doesn't matter which path you're following. This is definitely an interesting event. And so you will have soul incarnating from either of those three paths to come and help the ship or help its inhabitants to follow the ship, to be more correct.
Right. You just explained that the higher density positive beings would come here with the intention of helping and supporting, and this includes helping and supporting everyone. With what intention would a higher density negative being come here?
It would have the intention of serving self. Self will be represented in that world into power, into greed, into accumulation, into status, into hierarchy, into pyramidal, if we may say, system, into something that is narrow on top and bigger on the bottom. So those souls will be incarnating to make sure that the order is maintained even during the shift, meaning there is not too many souls awakening from the other team, or if they are awakening, find strategy to maintain them below the ones that are of service of self, or making sure that there are still faction, institution stuff that are actually in place to maintain a hierarchical order, to maintain something that is placing you on top and control the rest in order to still serve self. Are we explaining correctly for you?
Yes, thank you.
You're very well.
Do they, by doing that, help the negatively polarizing beings of our density in any way, or are they just helping themselves?
They will help themselves by helping what needs to be placed in order to maintain an order of power.
Okay.
When we say self, here you have to think about self as in bigger self, as in a bigger picture, as the self is actually what you call power. We are looking for a word because the concept can be confusing, as you have self as a player, that's a self. You have self as a goal, that's a self. But you have the representation of self as an bigger self is actually the essence of self, meaning it will be something driven by power, by selfishness, by something that is giving it a dominant aspect that is throning above to make sure that not everything is equal and together, but something that is more, like we say, of a pyramidal thingy where you have few on top. This is very important. Self needs to be on top. Togetherness is almost like if you take a picture, togetherness will be the shape of an ocean. Everyone will be a drop. Everyone is flat together, forming one thing. Self will be more like a mountain peak where you have the little pointy stuff on the top. This is self. Very different shape. So you can see what we're talking about. So when service of self is coming, is to make sure that atmosphere of the inhabitants doesn't turn into, let's say, la la land where everybody is equal, where everybody is Sisterhood, brotherhood, helping each other. Self doesn't want that. Self wants to put self on top, doesn't matter which self it is. It wants to keep a system that is actually not pleading for togetherness, that is pleading for hierarchy. Not everything is the same. Not everybody has same value. Some have more value than others. Some need to be on top. The drive is different. The intention is different. Even if it's not represented by one person, it's represented by a system. And that system needs to maintain its place in order for self to be of service of self. So the same way you have souls coming to help awakening, as you say, souls and help them become conscious of being more than just a player and being able to move with earth consciously. On the other side, you have ones coming to keep the order and maintain the ones playing for self-conscious. It's not because it's shifting. It's not because you have a lot of souls awakening and decide to play oneness that you need to forget your order and your system. They still exist. In order to function, we need order. In order to have order, we need something on top, someone on top, and some to follow orders, some to give the orders. This is what self is playing for self doing.
So you basically have these two intentions, two powers working against each other's idea.
Yes. Working against each other because just their vision and perspective of the direction that needs to be taken for this playtime is different.
Right.
But at the same time, we would like to emphasize something, the fact that they are working against each other without knowing it. They are also working for each other because one would not be existing without the other. Let us explain. The one playing for self are actually gaining power and are driven with more power because they can see that the others are raising as well. So it's motivating and it's actually making them more creative to find ways to keep systems in place the same way for the other team because they are seeing more and more what they call darkness in service of self. And they are tired of being abused by system and orders and powers. They are longing for something more sisterhood, brotherhood, equality for all, togetherness. Then they are putting things into motion to fight what marks the other on their own intention. But they are, in fact, fueling each other as well. The wanted to beat the other team and make sure we prevail is actually fueling each group, which could be also helpful in raising frequency as a whole.
Right. Does this, let's call it friction, also continue on the higher densities?
Yes, it does. To a certain point, to a certain point. There is always at one point the wholeness. So you will definitely have on some higher density those friction. But at one point, the higher you go, the more neutral you get. The more neutral you get, the more unity you have to the point that there is just one and everything is englobed in it. So there is no more separation.
Right. So at the end of it, if I may use these words, there's probably not an end, but from our perspective, there is neutrality.
Neutrality is closer to oneness.
To return to our plane here, to our playtime,
Yeah.
please explain the role of higher density neutral beings when it comes to interacting with, or maybe incarnating here in order to be there, observe or help.
Or some will have a role of balancing. Some will have a role of testing their own neutrality. Let's say, our curiosity, you could incarnate and see how well you can maintain your neutrality in a world that is clearly polarized. That would be a good experience and very rich in learning. Others will come here to try to balance, to do propaganda somehow on how inclusive it's supposed to be, on how wrong and right are concepts that are not really applying. If we're mentioning a whole, it's just a whole. It's not right or wrong, it just is. So some came to help tempered those polarization that are the two others, which is quite difficult, we believe, for them to play that role in that playtime. So neutral group would come principally from those 2 points of view. One is to just experience out of curiosity and challenge their own self in order to evolve as well, experience in a different way and see if they can keep neutrality in that. And the other will be to just help, well, intend to help appease everything and bring back the two opposite a little closer to each other to maintain this sensation of wholeness, of oneness, but completely inclusive, not just oneness as a dark oneness or as a pink oneness, just oneness as in all in one is just what is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So this could really be looked at as a dance between three partners.
Exactly. The dance is nice. We like that. We like that term. It could be a dance, yes. Sometimes you will have some solos. Sometimes you will have some duo. Sometimes you will have some ensemble. This is right.
At one time, there's a step forward for one of the partners, at others, a step backwards, maybe a spin.
Yes. Maybe a fall.
Right.
Maybe a jump.
I believe we mainly focused on, or let me phrase it differently. We established that the three paths are strategies to ascend
Yeah.
for those who are incarnated here in this playtime.
Yeah.
Does this necessity to get out of here, in quotation marks, again, also apply to higher density beings who decide to incarnate here?
We can tell you that some of us who decided to incarnate regret it. Some of us are eager to come home. Some of us actually cannot handle it and cut the game shorter, if we may say, and try to come home earlier. But yeah, for some of us, it is harder than it looked like, or it is harder than what we thought it could be. This is why it is very neat to experience it and play it, because therefore we fully comprehend the challenge of it and the beauty of it at the same time.
Could those, I believe there are many terms like volunteers or wanderers or starseeds even, do these souls from higher densities take the risk of being stuck here by maybe not ascending together with Earth? Or do they have an emergency exit that they can just use in any case?
Not really. I mean, we know of your emergency button, which is called suicide, which is one way to go right back when you came from. But this is not the way, unfortunately, because when you enter this game, you decide to play the party from beginning to end. You cut it short, you will come back and play it again until you reach the end of your party. So we would like to answer yes to your question. They take the risk, quote marks, of being stuck in their own chosen playtime just because they decided to come play and therefore they need to finish what they started.
Oh, I would imagine this is quite a service to take that risk. Already
Yeah.
having evolved to a higher density and then going back. Let's say you have evolved to high school and you're going back to primary school and you have the risk of being stuck in
Yeah.
primary school again.
Yes. But if you do embrace it, look at what you could do in primary school. You had no responsibility, really. You could be completely free somehow, act like a kid, just be a kid, embrace kids' game. So it could be played very well and be an amazing time. Let's say a high schooler or higher learning student has so many duties, so many responsibilities, it's already an adult. The way of thinking, the critical thinking, what the material they're learning, the way they are learning it. There is no playfulness into it. It's just study, behavior, conditionment. It's something more rigid, let's say.
Serious.
Yes, more serious. Thank you. So if you're given the choice and the possibility to come back to even kindergarten for a minute, because remember, this looks like a lifetime in this playtime, but it is really a minute for us. If you get the possibility to do that without fully grasping the complexity of being in the game and being in that notion of time, it's an amazing opportunity. A lot of us would like to jump in because even if we are witnessing the difficulty, we're not really embodying it until we are. So at first, it could be very pleasing and very motivating for higher dimensional being to come and just have fun, run carefree. And on top of it, having the challenge of forgetting is even better because you feel like you can really be that kindergarten kid. But then once you're in it and you're dealing with the full complexity and all the difficulty of it, it's a different story because you don't have the same ability and the same way of doing things. Now you have to move through the real concrete matter. Motion, action is completely different. So it can be very appealing from an outsider. And once you're in it, very dreadful. But you wouldn't know until you try.
Right.
This is why so many are volunteering to try.
I see. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we don't have to feel bad for volunteering souls.
It is almost like if you're watching a movie. We'll take Titanic, just because it's such a classic. You could feel bad for Leo, right? He doesn't have a pretty life to start with. He doesn't have a pretty end at all. So you could feel bad for him and you could feel bad for all the people on this boat. But they are just actors. They are not completely this. Leo is not Jack. Jack is Leo, but Leo is not Jack. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Yes. So, yes, of course, you'll feel bad while they are playing this game. But as soon as the game is over, the game is over. Like, as soon as the movie is over, and actors became themselves again. And they became enriched by the role they played, by all the emotions they got from that role, by all the connection they made with the other crew members, by the history they got taught when it's something like Titanic. You know, they became so much enriched and bigger and evolved people after they immersed themselves in a role. It's the same for souls. So, yes, it might be hard for some, but once it's over, it's over.
Right.
The difficulty doesn't last after it's over. this is something that you can be reassured with. As hard as the game may be in this playtime, once the game is over, it's over. So the hard times, the harshness, the challenges, everything that was really difficult to navigate through it is over with the game. You don't get them with you on the other side.
When you're saying game over, do you mean the end of an individual incarnation or the end of this density?
No, the end of an individual incarnation. When your own specific game is over, not the
Okay.
big designed playtime.
Right. Okay. What about those higher density beings who come here, enter this playtime, and maybe don't get to ascend together with Earth because they have forgotten what
Mhm.
needs to be done and they need to remain in this density but go to a different place because Earth is not available anymore?
Yeah.
Can we feel bad for them?
Why?
Because,
They will finish their game at one point. We don't recall one player being stuck for what you would call ever in a playtime. Otherwise, we would not call them playtime. It's a playtime because at one point the playtime ends. Not, that is correct, not the designed playtime, but the playtime of the soul of the individual is over. Even if they did not ascend on earth with their incarnation there, they will be able to get to fulfill their experience on the other one they will go to. And once they fulfill what they came for, then they can just return to themselves. The playtime will be over, and they might have the opportunity to play another one. But to feel bad for them, we don't believe it's necessary. It might be difficult for sure, but it will always be beneficial in the end.
thank you for that. I believe that I'm probably applying earthly concepts of evaluation and judgment to these things.
And it's hard not to do.
Thank you. One last question
Yeah.
in regard to this topic. A higher density being, let's say, just for the sake of example, from density 5 that comes here to density 3 and actually
Yeah.
makes it out again by ascending properly through one of the three
Mhm.
paths. Does this being then go back to density 5, or does it have to go through density 4 as well to get back to 5?
They go back to 5. They can be offered the opportunity to play in 4 if they want to, but they go back to themselves. So themself is in 5, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes. When you choose to have a playtime, you incarnate or you come in this playtime, whether there is a body or not, you come, but then once you're done, once your time is over and you experience what you came to experience, you go back to your own self. You look at your experience, you integrate, you digest, and then you decide if you've been given the choice whether you want to go next or you simply return to your duty if you had been given something to start with and the playtime was just a permission, or let's say you have a term for that, a vacation from what you are doing already.
That makes sense. Thank you. Two remaining questions. We talked
Mhm.
about higher density beings incarnating in human form. I assume there are
Yeah.
also higher density beings who stay in the non-physical, such as yourself or Ra or Seth, or there are many examples. Could you speak about the intentions of those beings also throughout the three paths?
Yeah. Could you clarify your question? You want the initial intention of A soul without being incarnated? Is that the question?
Yes, a
Yeah.
higher density soul that decides to come here and witness, maybe influence, but not incarnate.
Yes, that would be the same. That would be exactly the same. If a soul is made of service for others, they would choose to witness like we are and sometimes participate in order to fulfill what they intend to do, meaning service to others. So for us, we like to interfere when we're asked to transmit messages that can help you grow as incarnated soul, or we like to watch and see how service to other is portrayed in a playtime like yours, what we can get from it, and how we can extend our knowledge of service to other. For example, service to self will be the same. They would witness or interfere, and they would see how the game was played when emotions were involved, when senses were involved. They could apply it to their own world and use it as a supplementary or as an add-on knowledge. They can evolve from what they witness, same as neutrality. You see the intention remain intact. It's the same. It's just displayed and portrayed and used differently.
Right.
But the intention is actually what sticks with the soul. Whatever is remaining after the different body escape, the soul, the essence of the soul, keep its intention and can fulfill it and can keep on crafting it and develop it in a way that is actually related to their state of being, whether it's inside a physical or not, inside an emotional or not. It really depends, but it's the same. This is what we would do. We would still serve others. We will still try to elevate. We would still try to raise our frequency. We will still try to create with the same intention. It's just our creation will be different because we are not living in the danceful playtime.
Thank you for that. And I believe the last question you might have already covered, but I'm going to ask it anyways in case there's something to add. A lot of what we talked about today focused on ascension
Yeah.
and thereby as well on the process of remembering or awakening.
Yes.
Is there anyone who would benefit from this not taking place or being suppressed or made difficult?
In terms of awakening, you mean?
Yes.
Or in terms of ascension?
In terms of both.
Both.
Mhm.
Separately or simultaneously?
Say that again.
Both separately or both simultaneously?
I guess at this time of the game, simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Well, who will beneficiate from a non-ascension and a non-awakening? We would say lower frequency based entities for sure, because they will have more to play with. There will be more of them, less of the evolved ones. They will be able to create more world that would look like them so they can navigate through it and experience through it.
Mhm.
But beside that, and at one point they will grow out of it anyway, we are not seeing why it would beneficiate to not ascend. If Earth were not ascending, it would beneficiate all the energies that are not or that will not match the new one. Energies that are of lower vibration because they will have a playtime they could come play with. So that would beneficiate them. If Earth will stay in the same dimension, then more could be come playing and have the same set of rules as it was before it started shifting. That could be of interest for a lot but it defeats the purpose of the playtime, because when it was created, since Earth was a living species, it was already planned that at one point this living being will also evolve. Isn't it the point of every universal aspect to evolve? So it would not necessarily beneficiate one part of the universe to stay the same. Otherwise, it will be stagnant.
Mhm.
And stagnant energy is not really useful. There is no creation. There is nothing moving. It's just stagnant. We are not sure that anything will be beneficiating from it, except for the possibility of having a playtime that remain, like we say, in the same vibrational, in the same dimension. So whoever would like to play this game could come to this planet.
And it would
And
be reliably there.
yeah,
Or-
but that would be the only point. Maybe the fact that it's shifting could give the opportunity to create a different playtime of a lower density. So, the game can start again. We do believe that everything in the universe is in movement, that everything needs to evolve somehow. And stagnating, we don't think it will be good for truly any energy to be stagnant.
Right. Question came up because earlier we talked about this knowledge, this awareness, and how it would help incarnated beings choose path.
Yeah.
And in my experience as a human being, it seems as if this kind of material or information is very often tried to be kept secret or to be suppressed or not taken seriously in order to maintain like the status quo. And I was wondering if there is someone or something that would benefit from doing that.
Well, benefit from keeping people dormant? Yes,
Mhm.
of course, because this is what their end game is. Remember, we talked about it to maintain power, hierarchy, to maintain the system in faction.
Mm.
You need to be able to control, and you can only control if you have sheep or asleep people, dormant people. You cannot control what's awake. So, in that sense, of course, this will beneficiate, but not if everything would stay the same and not ascend. If the ascension will take place, but part of the people ascending will still stay dormant, then you would have your answer on who might it be interested. If we're talking about ascending or not ascending at all, then the answer will be different. But of course, for one path, it will be beneficial to keep some dormant, because when you are seeking power, you want to be the only one to know and be aware. You want to make sure that other doesn't know your trick. To the contrary, when you want everybody to be able to move together, you want everybody to know your trick. When you're neutral, you can see that in some disposition, it would be best if not everybody knew it, and some other, it would be best if everybody knew it. But if you take a bigger step back, you consider both ends to be valid. So we're back into the same question.
Yeah.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yes. Thank you so much. And
You're welcome.
I believe with that answer you have brought it back to where we started. And
Most
this is probably a good time to conclude today's session, which has
mhm.
already been much longer than the others. And we will continue with the material, the project in the next session, if
Yeah,
that's all right with you.
it is all right with us.
hmm Is there anything you would like to say or add at this point that might be of relevance that we have not covered today?
We are pleased with whatever you ask, and we hope that we did our best to answer clearly your question.
You did an amazing job, especially from my perspective. There is a lot of information that I have not received in such a clear way
Yeah.
before. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Is there anything you would like to say to Emily or to me before we conclude?
Well, the only thing we would like to mention, you might have heard it, that we switch speakers to
Yes.
say, and one of us is quite unfamiliar with the use of vocal cords yet. So we might need to train that aspect of our collective if it's okay. So maybe you could ask Emily when she wakes up if it was a discomfort with one of us coming and talk. Because if it was, we need to make sure that we keep on bringing that aspect so it can train and soothe them into the
Mm,
incorporation, if it's okay with Emily, of course.
yes, I will do that.
All right. Other than that, we are very pleased as usual. It's always a pleasure, and we are excited for those conversations to happen on a regular basis. So, thank you very much to the both of you for taking on that project and accepting our, let's say, transmission.
With joy and gratitude. Thank you so much for being with us and doing this with us. We both appreciate you immensely.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time, Rufus, and we will now close this journey for today.
Mhm. Till next time.
We thank Rufus and all other beings involved for the information and support they have given us today with much love and deep gratitude. We're asking all energies and entities to recede to where they belong.